Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a really foundational story from the Bible, the captivating saga of twin brothers Esau and Jacob.
Absolutely. And as you, our listener, expressed, there's, well, a real interest in understanding the significance of this ancient narrative, why it still matters.
Right.
So we've gathered the scriptural accounts. We're going to explore their, dramatic entry into the world, their key interactions, and really the long-term effects of the choices they made.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is, well, to get to the heart of the Esau and Jacob story. We want to pinpoint those defining moments that kind of shaped their destinies and really dig into the themes underneath birthright, blessing, deception, and eventually reconciliation. Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay, so it all starts with Isaac and Rebekah. They'd been waiting for children for a long time, years actually, and Isaac prayed fervently.
And those prayers were answered, but it wasn't exactly smooth sailing from there, was it? Rebecca's pregnancy sounds quite tumultuous.
It really was. She described this profound inner struggle, like a battle within her. So naturally, she sought guidance, asked God what was happening.
You can just imagine that feeling, right? That internal conflict.
Yeah.
And the answer she got was, well, pretty astonishing.
Yeah, quite extraordinary. The Lord revealed she was carrying not just two babies, but two nations, two peoples who would be divided.
Two nations, wow.
And maybe the biggest surprise, the older would serve the younger. That prophecy really sets the stage for everything that follows.
And then they're born. Not just one, but two. Esau comes out first, described as reddish and very hairy. So his name means hairy.
Right. And then Jacob follows immediately, his hand actually grasping Esau's heel,
Grasping the heel.
which is why his name means he who grasps the heel, or, perhaps more pointedly, supplanter. Even their birth sort of foreshadow their whole relationship.
It really does. And those differences just continued as they grew up, didn't they?
Oh, definitely. Esau became this skilled hunter, very much an outdoorsman, strong, maybe a bit impulsive.
Man of action.
Exactly. While Jacob was, well, quieter, preferred staying near the tents. He seems more thoughtful, maybe strategic even then.
So you have this classic contrast, the rugged hunter and the quiet thinker. And this difference in personality, it affected how their parents felt about them.
It seems so. Isaac clearly favored Esau. Maybe he admired the hunting skills, the connection to the outdoors. The Bible even mentions he loved the taste of the game Esau brought back.
Yeah, okay. A very tangible connection.
Yeah. But Rebekah, she favored Jacob. Maybe she appreciated his quieter nature, his presence around the home.
And this parental favoritism, you see this setting the stage for conflict, right?
Absolutely. It creates this fertile ground for rivalry. It's a dynamic we see again and again. This imbalance really paves the way for some of the later issues, the deception and resentment.
And speaking of how they were viewed, much later, the prophet Malachi has that really strong statement, I loved Jacob, but I hated Esau. How do we understand that?
That's a powerful verse, and it's often debated, but generally theologians understand it less as God having personal animosity towards Esau and more as reflecting God's sovereign choice.
A divine selection.
Right. Choosing Jacob for a specific role in the bigger plan, the covenant promises. It's about purpose, not necessarily personal affection in the way we think of it.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's get into something absolutely crucial here. The birthright.
Yeah.
What exactly did that mean back then?
The birthright was huge in their culture, especially for the firstborn son. It wasn't just, getting a double portion of the inheritance, though that was part of it.
More than just money or property then.
Oh, much more. It included the patriarchal blessing, which was this vital spiritual inheritance directly linking back to the promises God made to Abraham.
The Abrahamic covenant.
Exactly. It signified leadership in the family, the responsibility to carry forward that spiritual legacy. Losing it wasn't just losing stuff, it was potentially breaking that connection to the promises.
Wow, okay. So it carried immense weight, which makes what happens next even more shocking, really. Tell us about the sale of the birthright.
Right. So you have to picture Esau coming back from a hunt. He's completely wiped out, maybe didn't catch anything, and he's starving. Literally feels like he might die.
Just utterly drained.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Jacob is at the camp, and he's just cooked up this pot of lentil stew. Red lentil stew, the text specifies.
You can almost smell it, right?
Yeah,
Especially if you're starving.
Exactly. So Esau comes in, probably smelling that stew, and basically pleads, quick, let me have some of that red stew, I'm about to die.
Desperate. And Jacob sees his chance.
He does. Jacob, ever the opportunist perhaps, says, okay, but first, sell me your birthright.
Just like that. Wow. given what the birthright meant.
It's quite a demand. And Esau's response is just as startling. He says, look, I'm about to die. What good is the birthright to me?
So impulsive.
Yeah.
Focused entirely on the immediate need, the hunger.
It really shows Esau's character, doesn't it? Living completely in the moment, maybe not valuing that long-term spiritual heritage, he dismisses it.
Whereas Jacob, whatever you think of his methods, clearly understood its value.
Absolutely. He saw the long-term significance and was determined to get it, even by capitalizing on his brother's weakness.
So the deal is struck. Esau swears an oath.
Yes, Jacob makes him swear an oath. Then Esau eats the stew and bread, gets up, and just leaves. The text says he despised his birthright.
Despised it, just threw it away for a meal. It seems so careless.
It does. He just goes back to his life, hunting. Jacob, meanwhile, holds on to the secret, this transaction.
You wonder what Rebekah thought if or when she found out, given her preference for Jacob.
She might have seen it as proof Jacob was more worthy, perhaps. Meanwhile, Isaac, his eyesight is failing by now. He seems completely unaware this has even happened.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about the lentil stews in our own lives, the things we trade away, maybe long-term values or opportunities for instant gratification.
That's a great point, and it ties back to that prophecy, too. Was it all destiny, or did Esau's choice play a key role? It seems like both are kind of woven together here.
Right. Okay, so years go by. Isaac is now very old, blind, and feels his time is near. He decides it's time to give that patriarchal blessing.
Yes, the really significant one. And naturally, he calls for Esau, his favorite, tells him to go hunt, prepare his favorite savory dish so Isaac can eat, and then give him the blessing before he dies.
But someone else is listening in.
Rebekah,
Yeah.
she overhears the whole conversation, and her loyalty to Jacob just kicks right in. She needs Jacob to get that blessing.
So she devises a plan. A pretty elaborate one, actually.
Very quickly, yes. She tells Jacob, go get 2 good young goats. I'll cook them just the way your father loves, like Esau would.
But Jacob hesitates, right? He points out the obvious problem.
He does. He says, basically, Dad will know Esau's hairy, I'm smooth-skinned, he'll feel me, realize I'm tricking him, and I'll get a curse instead of a blessing. It's a reasonable fear.
Yeah, seems risky.
But Rebekah is determined. She brushes off his concerns, says, let any curse fall on me, my son. Just do as I say. She takes full responsibility.
Wow. So she prepares the meal, and then comes the disguise.
Right. She dresses Jacob in Esau's best clothes, probably, so he'd smell like Esau too, and then covers his smooth hands and the back of his neck with the goat skins.
To mimic Esau's hairiness, it's quite the setup.
It really is. So Jacob, armed with the food and the disguise, goes in to his blind father.
Pretending to be Esau, that must have been incredibly tense.
You can feel it in the text. Isaac is immediately suspicious. The voice sounds like Jacob's. He asks him to come closer.
So he can touch him.
Exactly. He feels the hands, the goatskin hair. He says the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He's confused.
But the disguise is working, kind of.
It is. He even asks point blank, are you really my son Esau?
And Jacob.
Jacob lies. He says, I am.
That's the moment, isn't it? The deliberate deception.
It is. And Isaac may be persuaded by the familiar smell of Esau's clothes clinging to Jacob, or maybe just resigned. Finally accepts it. He eats the meal.
And then he gives the blessing. What did that blessing entail?
It's a powerful blessing, invoking prosperity, abundance, dominion. May God give you dew from heaven, the richness of the earth, plenty of grain and new wine. Let nations serve you. Be Lord over your brothers. It's about leadership, divine favor, authority.
A huge, life-defining blessing. And Jacob leaves, just as.
Just as Esau returns from his hunt, he's prepared the meal. He comes in eagerly, ready for the blessing his father promised him.
Oh, the timing is devastating.
Absolutely. Esau says, Father, sit up and eat my game so you can bless me. And Isaac starts trembling violently. He realizes what's happened.
He knows he's been tricked.
Yes. He says, who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came and I blessed him. Yes, and he will be blessed.
The blessing is irrevocable.
And Esau's reaction.
Pure anguish. Right.
A loud, bitter cry. Utter devastation. He pleads with Isaac. Bless me too, my father. He begs for any blessing left.
Just heartbreaking.
It really is. Isaac confirms Jacob came deceitfully and took the blessing. And Esau cries out, isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me twice. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing.
That earlier incident comes rushing back.
Exactly. He connects the two events, and he pleads again, haven't you reserved any blessing for me?
Does Isaac have anything left to give?
He does give Esau a blessing, but it's almost the opposite of Jacob's. It speaks of dwelling away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven.
Living by the sword.
Yes, living by the sword and serving his brother, though there's a hint, a promise, that eventually he will break Jacob's yoke from his neck.
So a much harsher destiny foretold. Understandably, Esau is filled with resentment.
Deep resentment. He harbors hatred for Jacob and vows, essentially, the days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob.
He plans revenge.
He does, and Rebekah, hearing about this threat, once again steps in to protect Jacob.
Tells him to run.
Yes, she warns Jacob and tells him to flee to her brother Laban in Haran, far away, until Esau's anger cools down.
So Jacob flees, having secured the blessing through deception but tearing the family apart, and Esau is left betrayed and furious.
A very broken situation. Jacob is on the run, Esau is plotting revenge.
Let's shift then to what happens to Esau after this. We know he married local women, Hittite women, which upset his parents. Why was that such a big deal for Isaac and Rebekah?
Well, for them, maintaining the distinct lineage tied to Abraham and the covenant promises was paramount. Marrying women from outside that specific line, from Canaanite cultures like the Hittites, was seen as diluting that heritage.
A cultural and religious clash.
Exactly. It caused them grief of mind, the text says. It created tension because it represented a move away from the family's core identity and purpose.
Despite that, Esau does establish himself. He becomes successful in his own right.
Right. Yes. He sets up his own household, continues to be a skilled hunter, clearly thrives in that role. He becomes a powerful figure.
And then, years later, he hears Jacob is coming back, wealthy, with a large family, and Esau makes another interesting marriage choice around that time.
He does. He marries Mahalath, who is Ishmael's daughter, Ishmael being Isaac's half-brother.
So, marrying back into the extended Abrahamic family.
Precisely. It seems like a strategic move, perhaps an attempt to reconnect with that broader lineage, maybe even to signal a shift after the earlier marriages that caused his parents such grief.
Interesting. And ultimately, Esau and his descendants settle in Seir, that mountainous region. What became of them there?
They flourished in Seir. Esau's family grew into a powerful nation, the Edomites. Genesis 36 actually gives a whole genealogy of Esau's descendants, chiefs, and kings who ruled in Edom.
So he didn't get the primary blessing of dominion over his brother in the way Jacob did, but his line still became significant, powerful.
Absolutely. And in a way, Isaac's blessing for Esau dwelling away from the fertile land, living by the sword, seems reflected in Edom's history. It was a rugged, mountainous region, and the Edomites were known as fierce warriors.
And their relationship with Israel? Jacob's descendants.
Complex. Often marked by conflict, periods where one dominated the other, fulfilling that other part of Isaac's prophecy about serving his brother but eventually breaking free. It was rarely peaceful.
Okay, which brings us to the reconciliation. Years have passed, Jacob is returning to Canaan, and he's, well, terrified of meeting Esau.
Understandably so. The last time they interacted, Esau wanted to kill him, so Jacob is very apprehensive. He sends messengers ahead with lavish gifts, trying to, soften Esau up.
Try to appease him.
Exactly. And then, the night before they're supposed to meet, Jacob has that famous, mysterious wrestling match.
With the angel or divine being.
Right, where he struggles all night, refuses to let go until he receives a blessing, and his name is changed to Israel, meaning he struggles with God. It seems like a deeply transformative experience for Jacob.
Preparing him for the encounter with his brother, perhaps.
It certainly seems that way. So, the next day, Jacob sees Esau approaching with 400 men.
400 men. That must have looked like an army. Jacob must have been even more terrified.
You'd think so. But what happens next is completely unexpected.
Esau doesn't attack.
No. The text says Esau ran to meet Jacob, embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. And they both wept.
Wow. After all those years of anger and resentment, she runs to embrace him.
It's an incredibly powerful moment of spontaneous forgiveness and reconciliation. Completely turns expectations upside down.
And what about the gifts Jacob sent?
Esau initially refuses them. He says, I have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself.
That speaks volumes too, doesn't it? Like the material things don't matter as much anymore. He's not the same man who traded his birthright for stew.
It really suggests a significant change in Esau. Generosity, contentment. Jacob insists, saying seeing Esau's face is like seeing God's face because Esau received him so favorably, and eventually Esau accepts the gift.
It seems both brothers really grew during their time apart.
Yeah.
Jacob, the deceiver, is now approaching with humility. Esau, the impulsive one, shows incredible grace.
It seems that way, a real sense of healing. But interestingly, despite this warm reunion, they don't stay together.
They part ways again.
Yes. Esau offers to travel with Jacob or leave some men, but Jacob politely declines. Esau heads back to Seir, his home region, and Jacob continues on into Canaan.
So reconciliation, but also separation. And as we mentioned, the relationship between their descendants, Edom and Israel, remained complex.
Very much so. Periods of conflict, war, subjugation, the brotherly tension echoed down the generations. And it's interesting how Esau is remembered differently, too.
How so?
Well, in some Jewish and Christian traditions, he's primarily the figure who despised his birthright, the symbol of worldliness. But other readings see him as more complex, capable of great forgiveness, maybe even wronged by Jacob and Rebekah initially.
It shows how rich and layered these ancient stories are. They aren't simple morality tales.
Not at all. They explore really deep human themes: inheritance, family, betrayal, the possibility of healing, how history gets written and remembered.
So wrapping up this deep dive on Esau and Jacob, what are the main things we should take away?
I think it's just a really powerful look at human nature, our desires, our family dynamics, how significant our choices are, the ripple effects. But also, importantly, the potential for reconciliation even after deep hurts.
And for you listening, it's a story that still speaks volumes today, offering insights into themes that play out in our own lives and relationships all the time.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Think about birthright in your own context. Not just material things, but maybe inherited values, opportunities you have, even your own potential.
Things we might take for granted.
Or things we might be tempted to trade away for something immediate, like Esau's stew. What does this ancient story teach us about the long view? About the impact our choices have, not just on us, but maybe on those who come after us too? Something to reflect on.